Hey everybody, this is Tommy Lackey with PowerInvesting.com. Today is Thursday, March 28th, 2024, and we're going to do another subsector drill down video, and today we're going to cover the biotechnology subsector. The reason is that in the start of this rally, healthcare really led out with biotechnology out in front by far. It held the top relative strength spot for quite a while until just recently pulling back some. But let's take a look as we go down through. You can see yesterday in our power universe, we made new highs for this move, which is always a good sign. But when we pull down here to our equal weight sector rankings, you can see that healthcare has dropped off its 100 a month ago down to 73 now and has been kind of leaking recently. Now, again, that's not that unusual after being a top performer as long as it was, but see, we had biotechnology that was up at 100 for quite a long time, and now we find it dropping all the way down to 82 after some sideways move, and it's actually one of the few subsectors that's down over the last month. But after yesterday's price action, we thought it might be worth taking a little bit closer look and kind of seeing what's going on in that subsector itself. I want to start here with the healthcare sector itself and show that it really hasn't pulled back all that far since late February when it kind of made its peak, and it's pretty much been basing sideways for about a month. The RSI pulled back as well. I just wanted us to get a quick picture here before we actually move over to biotechnology itself. And when we move over to this particular chart, we can see it's pulled back even less. It peaked again that February 27th. It's kind of moved sideways and then pulled back a little bit in March, started losing a little bit of ground, but made higher lows over the last 2 weeks. And then yesterday's leading price action brought me to say, let's take a closer look. If we look at the relative strength on top, you can see with our relative strength window here, the 6 and 12 month are still up at the 100 level leading, and the 3 month is the only thing that has dropped down to the 82 after a long stint up at the highs. Now again, when we zoom back, you got to remember this is after a long stint at the bottom. So this outperformance here is looking like a fresh start here for biotechnology as much as just a quick run. So now we're time to look and see if this pullback has taken its course and if we're ready to move back higher. If it does fail, the next area we're going to be looking at is around this 100 level, which was basically the consolidation right around the beginning of the year. But if we pull on down on the breadth, like I said, this is just starting to reemerge because it has been pulling back. You can see all of its breadth at the end of the year, November, December, got really strong across the board on pretty much all of our measures, and it's been pulling back and basically moderating since. All of them have come back into good ranges and are now starting to work their way back higher. And then our 3 short-term measures, the breadth thrust, the McClellan oscillator, and the MA breadth percent above the 20-day moving average, have all put in somewhat little higher lows here as they try to move back up. Going on down into our relative comparatives, again, these had very strong moves off the lows in November, very thrust oriented and leading the markets as a whole, which is why we expect that they will probably lead again. However, that pullback, got it all relative strength versus everything, is just now starting to curl back up. So again, we may be early, but we think it's worth taking a look here and start getting our ideas together. And this is a really big space inside of the healthcare sector. As we can look over here and see, when we go to our universe count, this is something I do for myself. It's not on the public page. But if we go to our universe count here, we can see in the healthcare section, biotechnology has 241 constituents out of the total of 497 in healthcare as a whole. So it's a very large portion, which makes sense as to why it looks very similar to the chart of the healthcare as a whole. Now, when we move over to our final chart on the biotechnology page, we look at percent making new highs and new lows, and we can see that after a very robust move off the lows, things did weaken down here on the shorter term. Longer term averages never really took. Back here you can see where 63-day lows really expanded on any of the pullbacks previously. This time it's not happening, and it's already starting to kind of diverge back higher as price tries to work higher as well. Now, we're not getting the new highs just yet, again, because we're just at maybe the potential base of this pullback, but we are starting to see them perk up over the last few days, even as markets have been kind of weak. You definitely have new lows in this space as well, because this is a pretty wide space with a lot of speculative companies in it. So there's certainly a good percentage of them that are still going down. But once you get into the strong ones, there are plenty out there. As we look at the biotechnology relative strength here, you can see that there are some that have really moved huge over the last few weeks and months. These stocks have really taken off, and again, some of them may feel like they're too far, and they might be for your style, but don't rule them out just because they've made a big move off the lows, because this was an underperforming sector for years prior to it. So we need to make sure we understand that there are right sides of a lot of these bases that need to be built and right sides that need to come back up towards the highs. And there's some pretty big distance on some of them, as we'll see here in a minute when we take a look at some of the stocks. But first, let's move over to the ETF side. Now, I just picked three for us to discuss. The main reason is I want us to look at three different kind of measures of what's going on here. First, I looked at IBB, which is the large cap ETF. And as you can see here with our RSI, it's in bull ranges across all three measures that we use. It's in a bull range in the 65-minute, the daily, and the weekly. It's above its MA bands on all of them now, and it looks like it's pointing higher on all of them. The weekly just put in a positive reversal over here, as you can see, telling us it might be ready to start again. And this daily pullback that we've been talking about never really came down and tested this bull range at all. So the large caps are still performing pretty well. When we move to the equal weight here, you can see is this one is really now just starting to emerge more. Out of the 65-minute, it was in a bear range here recently. As things pulled back, it's held roughly at 40 and now looks like it wants to move back higher. The daily, this was all in testing the daily bull range as the CFG comes down and did diverge with closing lows without closing lows here on the CFG. So that's something we want to look for, and we like to see with higher volume here closing as well. And of course the weekly here, also a big positive reversal if this week ends up closing higher on Friday. Again, we are midweek, so there's a few things we have to look at. But like if we look at it down here on XBL and its relative strength on the bottom left chart down here, you can see its relative comparisons have all pulled back against the three majors and all look to be either breaking or getting ready to break these downtrend lines. So again, looks good from an equal weight standpoint. And then we look into the small cap biotechs, look very similar. These are called Alps Medical Breakthrough, so it should be leaning more small cap, but it may be some of the same names we're used to in a lot of these others. All right, so now let's go through some of the stocks, and I'm going to go through as fast as I can. I'll put a list in the post so that you guys can take a look, but I'm going to go through quite a few charts to show you that there are many different looks in this space. I've got 61 names here that I just pulled out last night looking at some of the charts. All of them may not be ready right this second, but they give a good idea of how much opportunity potential is in this area. First, we're going to start with MNRA. Again, this one's in a big weekly downtrend. It's in a bear range over here, as you can see, but pointing higher and getting ready to make. If we can break over this level, say in the 112 to say 116 level, then we really can start moving up the right side on this one. The daily has moved back into a bull range here and looks like the volume pattern is starting to improve. Next one is EXAS. This one's coming out of a daily base down here, potentially a weekly double bottom if we can get over this 77 level. As you can see, the weekly really held the bull range or very close to it. Again, we had some pierces below this last pullback, and now it's back in this daily bull range. Next is AMGN. AMGN, again, this one pulled back pretty hard since the start of the year, and now it looks like it's making a reversal. The daily has not moved into a bull range yet, but the 65-minute over here on the left side chart is playing in a high bull range here and continues to want to move higher. Volume trend looks like it's shifting since we have hit the lows. The weekly never went into a bear range. It held the daily bull range, and look down here where the CFG is, nice and oversold. So Amgen looks like it still has potential. SRPT. This one as well, looks like on the daily, it's moved up high and strong. It pulled back for a few days, and now it's starting to try to work its way back up. After beating earnings, it still pulled back, and now it wants to work its way back. BMRN, again, this is a nice daily pulling back. We're not in a bull range yet on the daily, but look over here on the 65-minute. Again, we think things shift in time frames, so 65-minute will shift first. And then we look to see if it shifts the daily. If it gets rejected here, then obviously we have to back off until we look at and find a better here. But the daily looks like it might be ready to break into a new bull range, with the weekly over here testing the RSI bull range at the lows and getting a nice reversal. Next one is ABBV. Again, this one's right near the highs. Didn't pull back much at all. We've got bull ranges across the board. The weekly is getting a little hot up near 80, but that doesn't mean it can't continue to move out of this monstrous base we have right here. Okay, again, overbought can get more overbought until this RSI could get all the way up into the 90s. It doesn't happen very often, but it can. That's why a indicator is never a decision maker. It's always price. Now we go to RGEN, another one in here. You can see this one's now down towards the lows yesterday, trying to make a reversal. So RGEN could be turning over. And if it rolls over, fine. You got a pretty good out right here around 181-ish. And if you want to be a little looser, I'd probably go back down here to about 173. But it looks like this daily is testing this RSI bull range. It's coming down on the CFG. We'll have to see if it makes a turn or not. REGN, again, this one's just consolidating up here near the highs. RSIs are all in bull ranges across all three time frames, and looks like it continues to have a potential higher. Vertex yesterday ended up negative, but again is in kind of an ABC pullback, and at this point it's testing this trend line here to see if it wants to break back higher. Now if we move down into the mid-cap section, again we see some similar ideas, going to go pretty fast. RYTM came back down here. The daily is in a bear range after staying under here for a bit, but notice this weekly over here is in a bull range and pulled us a positive reversal right here if this week can close up. Now in this one, the 65-minute is not quite as convincing yet in a new bull range, but if it can move higher or pull back and hold above 40, we've got a good opportunity in RYTM. BPMC, this is one right near the highs on the daily. It's in RSI bull ranges on the daily and the weekly, both pointing up. The daily footprint looks terrific, and the 65-minute RSI over here on the left looks pretty solid as well. Again, this is one that I would say you could work against these highs and just say, 99.5 is the one, that's 5%. So over yesterday's highs, and you just kind of watch it there. Once it gets to that area around 100, those big round numbers oftentimes can be sticklers. But still looks like it's getting the volume it needs to kind of work its way through. SANA, another one right up near the highs. Mid-cap company basically went into strong bull range back in November. It's pulling back to the 50 like it did before, and it's starting to roll its way back up. The weekly is still in a nice bull range. The 65 minutes in a nice bull range. VCEL, here's one that just broke out yesterday. But again, I'm just trying to give you an idea of where some of these things are sitting. Look at this nice volume pattern on the daily. Sure, you want to see if it consolidates above this and keeps going? Fine. Or closes that gap? Fine. But if it doesn't come back to you, don't be surprised. VERA, another one that has run up recently. And then basically consolidated back, but not really losing a lot of ground right into the MA bands on the daily. MDGL, DNLI, again, here's a nice little consolidation in a bull range in a huge downtrend. Now, again, some people don't want to get this early, and that's perfectly fine. But if you did want to try to jump on early, there's a lot of right side here to climb if it decides to. APGE up near the highs. This is one that doesn't have right side to climb, but it gapped up on earnings. It's moved sideways as the RSI has come off its overbought standpoint, and the 65-minute just continues to chill in this RSI bull range. So a break above this level right here, in my opinion, gets some legs and gives you an easy stop out point if you're wrong. ALPN, another one right up in that area in the highs, pull back just a little bit. Volume pattern's awesome. RSI bull range is awesome. Now you're pretty high here on the weekly, so you want to be pretty tight on this just to make sure, in case you're wrong, you could go right below the MA bands, a close below 33. Or if you're worried about a close below, I would do maybe an hour or half an hour close below if you prefer to make sure you don't end up in some kind of waterfall with these smaller, less known companies. VKTX, everybody knows that chart. It's been all over the news. ARWR caught my attention because of this potential reversal. If this space is really going to continue to do strong, then this is an area right here holding this RSI bull range with moving in. You've got a nice little 65-minute base here you break above to kind of get yourself involved. Rare, another mid cap that pulled back hard off the late February highs. It's come right back into some volume consolidation, held the RSI bull range, and the weekly is putting in a nice solid positive reversal if we can close up today. So again, there's so many in here. CRNX, I'm going to post this list at the bottom so you can just copy and paste it into whatever watch list you want to put. But I'll post all these tickers at the bottom. But right here, another one, it's CLDX, pulls a big surge off of earnings, pulls back to its previous breakout point, and now is deciding whether it wants to move back. But this RSI bull range is holding. ALX, a name we know, pulls back into its previous after surging up in early February. Again, but look at this big weekly. This is going to take a little more time, but if you want to try to play against maybe these 26 lows, somewhere in that end, or even below this gap at about 24, for a longer term standpoint, it gives you some room. I think I might wait till it either pulled back there or broke out higher and use this 26 as a low, just as an idea. Now we have CRYS right up there at the highs, looking ready again. Halo in the middle of a weekly base. BHVN near the highs. EXEL is again up near those highs. Bull ranges across all three of these and looking like it still has the potential for more. CYTX, this one gapped up and pulled back and now looks like it wants to reemerge out of the gap. There's just so many. We go down to small caps, STRO. Big move the last 2 days off of earnings, but look over here on the weekly where it's coming to where if it decides to hold and move out of this, moves over this big volume area, it's got plenty of room. It can move up. Now, again, these are small caps, so they're going to be more volatile. You're going to need to watch that. Bigger risk, potentially bigger return. Doesn't always go together, but it is something you certainly want to look for in these small cap biotech names if the space gets hot again. A lot of these are ones I pulled out because they were holding the RSI bull ranges on the pullback and staying in weekly bull ranges. But like this one, CDNA, a small cap company with a huge downtrend and a base here. And these particular companies, this one's losing money. So again, you want to look a little closer if you want it to have earnings in this particular market, just due to some of the other difficulties. Here we have ALLO. Again, I can go through. I've got a ton of small caps in here as well. Let's look at RNA. RNA is right at the highs. This one has ran really strong and really hard, but you're still only talking about a $1.97 billion company. Look at this daily base here. The daily's not overbought at all. The 65-minute is not at all. The weekly is getting up there, but like I said, it can go higher if the daily wants to continue to push. RGNX, another one that gapped up. It's now pulled back, closed that gap, and consolidated. Now we see if it decides it wants to move back higher. Twist is one that really looked to me like I might want to take a look at, because not only has the daily been consolidating for almost 4 months, since mid-December, but the daily came right down to this daily RSI bull range and now looks like it wants the chance to move back higher as well. PTGX, another small cap. Look at this baby. In the weekly, you got a nice RSI bull range playing above the rim over here, trying to turn up with a positive reversal right here. And then you've got the daily holding the RSI bull range. This list is a long list. There's a lot of names in here. You got to understand they have a little more volatility than some of the other sectors or subsectors out there, but then the rewards potentially are there too, especially when this sector is in favor. And back in November, it came back in favor after being out of favor for quite a few years. So this is something for us to take a look at, keep a close eye on, because it can definitely be a market leader again. All right, I hope this helps. Hope everybody enjoys kind of watching these videos. Please give me any feedback, hit like on the YouTube, all that kind of stuff. And then also, good luck out there today. Just make sure you kind of stay patient, pay attention to what you're doing, and let some of these ideas develop. All right, have a great day. Thanks, everybody.